Hello, everybody. It is Tom, and this is the Trans Life Podcast. So, hello. I have no idea how long this episode is going to be because we are going back to the OG format of me talking about stuff without a script, without a plan, with barely any notes, just a general vague idea of what I want to talk about. So I'm sure it's going to go great. I'm sure editor me will have a wonderful time getting rid of all the weird stuff that I say that does not work for a podcast. So also folks on YouTube have the benefit of seeing the big circles under my eyes because Darla, as usual, my cat, for those who are unaware, Darla, as usual, has decreed that 4 a.m. is the only appropriate wake-up time for anyone, but especially me, the person who feeds her. So, yeah, I'm a little bit tired, but, But yeah, so if you missed the last episode of the Trans Life Podcast, definitely go back and watch it or listen to it. It's available to watch on YouTube and available to listen to on Spotify, on news, the Trans Life Podcast is now available on Apple Podcasts. Hooray. Because I'm a podcast noob and did not know how to get it on there and finally figured out how to do it. So yeah. So it is available on Apple Podcasts, might be available on some other things, but if there's anything where you're like, hey, it'd be awesome if the podcast was available on this podcasting platform, please let me know and I'll try to get it on there. I'm mainly looking at free options at this point because I am poor. But yeah, if there's any podcasting platform you know of where you're like, oh, that would be a good place, let me know. I will look into it. So anyway, as I was saying, the last episode was awesome. It was it's so good. You should watch or listen to my last podcast episode. Is so good. No, it was not so good because of me. It was so good because of my guest, Jackson Bird, the amazing author, content creator, all around awesome person. Yeah, so you should definitely listen to or watch that episode because we talked about a whole lot of stuff. Jackson had just such great insight to share, and yeah, you should all go watch it or listen to it, but not right this second, because finish this one first. Though I guess you could go back, you could whatever. I'm not your dad. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want to do. Anyway, so yeah, today, sadly, it's back to just me, which is fine. I am enough. I am enough. But we are going to talk about something related to being trans because this is the Trans Life Podcast. So I thought it might be interesting. We'll see. To talk about something that played a really key role in kind of my trans journey before I realized I was trans, and that was my fixation with different fictional characters. So throughout the course of my childhood, my young adulthood, and beyond, I was always kind of obsessed with a certain character from a TV show, a movie, a book, etc., etc., etc. So there was always someone that I was fixated on, and it wasn't just that I liked that person, I full on wanted to be that person. So like I would wear clothes like they would wear, I would talk like they would talk, I would try to be in their mindset and do things that they would do. And it should come as no surprise that the majority of those characters were guys, were male characters. And throughout my entire childhood and teenage years and beyond, as I said, I was constantly kind of low-key role-playing as these male characters. And somehow that didn't set off any bells. I was like, oh, this is just a thing. And it can be just a thing that someone is doing. Like, you don't have to be trans or non-binary or anything to explore or be, obsessed with a certain character or want to be more like someone. You can admire anyone regardless of gender. But for me, it was definitely part of kind of the boy inside trying to say, hey, that's that's more like me than this outside that other people are seeing. So, yeah, so I thought I might talk about some of the fictional characters who played a key role in my development and invite anyone who's listening to this who would like to share what fictional characters were important to you during your journey, whether it was a trans journey or not. So yeah, because I think the fictional characters that we admire or that we're drawn to can say a lot about who we are and who we want to be. So yeah, I think it's just an interesting thing to discuss. So yes, okay. So travel with me back to the long ago days of the 1980s. I was born. Yay. And yeah, pretty early on, like the first piece of media that I was ever obsessed with was Disney's Sleeping Beauty, which we eventually had on VHS. And I watched it over and over and over again. I also had like a little storybook as well. But the character who I was obsessed with was Maleficent. So to the extent that, and this isn't really, I mean, it could be part of my trans queer journey potentially, but it was to the extent where like my mom has an audio tape of me as like a 2 or 3 year old knowing every single line of Maleficence by heart, like having memorized all of her lines. And so she has me on tape, like reciting Maleficent's lines as a 2 and 3 year old. Now, granted, listen, when I had the chance to listen back to it, I was like, I cannot understand a single word that this child is saying. But if for those of keen hearing and the ability to decipher young child speak, I did indeed memorize every single line of Maleficent. So yeah, technically one of my first and I didn't try to become Maleficent. I just thought she was cool. So that doesn't really count. But as long as we're going back, I figured I might as well mention Maleficent because she was awesome. Okay, but the first person, and this is not exactly a fictional character, but kind of. The first person who I was obsessed with and wanted to be like was when I was in not too long after Maleficent. It was the preschool days. So maybe I was 4 or 5. I don't know exactly. But it was Mr. T. So I'd probably seen the A-Team and things like that on TV. And I just thought that this like muscular, mohawked black man was amazing, and I wanted to be him. And I would wear like a little tank top and pose, do muscle man poses, and call myself Baby T. Yeah, so that was a time. I don't remember much about that or what I admired so much about Mr. T. Probably because just he was strong, he was cool, he had a gold chain. After that, I'm sure there were others because I was always really fixated on something media wise. But the next big fixation was on not a male character, but on Ariel from The Little Mermaid. And I talked about this in Dreamers, which is my trans queer young adult book right here on my bookshelf. I talked about this a little bit in Dreamers, but it's really interesting that apparently The Little Mermaid works really well as like a trans allegory because you have this teenager who wants to change her body and live in a world that is not like her own. Her dad disapproves. She falls in love with a guy who's part of a group she's not supposed to be romantically interested in. And, eventually she transitions into living among these people in the form that feels most right to her. So, it can work really well as like a trans queer allegory. And so I was obsessed with that. I wanted to be a mermaid so badly. Like I would swim around our little backyard like tiny pool with my ankles together, kind of mimicking a fin, and like I would pray in my nightly prayers. I would be like, "And please turn me into a mermaid," and stuff like that. So, and it wasn't that I wanted to be Ariel. I just thought being able to, swim around in the ocean and so I wanted the opposite of what Ariel wanted. Like Ariel wanted to be on land and walk around and, have the prince fall in love with her. I just wanted to swim in the sea with Flounder and and do cool stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that counts as being obsessed with Ariel. I was more obsessed with like the concept of being a mermaid. But yeah, so I was super obsessed with The Little Mermaid. I watched the VHS tape of that like literally once a day at least for almost a year or more than that. After that, there was a brief period where I kind of wanted to be Peter Pan, not based on the cartoon, the Disney cartoon, but based on the Mary Martin live action musical version, which we had on VHS, and which is it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one, but I was just mesmerized. And the thing that mesmerized me the most, the thing that really got my attention, was the fact that Peter Pan was being played by Mary Martin, a woman. Oh my god. So yeah, that just blew my mind because I have two younger brothers, and at that time, probably only the younger brother closest to me in age was the only one who was old enough for me to like play with all the time and stuff. But when we played things, we would do a lot of pretend, obviously, because we were children. And I often wanted to play the guy roles, but I thought I wasn't allowed because I was a quote unquote girl. But Mary Martin Peter Pan kind of freed me of that, where I was like, holy crap, I can play a guy. It's fine. Mary Martin has done it right here on this VHS tape that I can see. So the next time we played a game, I took on a male role. And when I was questioned about that, I would just be like, Mary Martin, hello. And no one could argue with me. The next big obsession lasted for quite some time. Yeah, so I would say after that, Luke Skywalker. So when I was 11 years old, my dad showed me the Star Wars trilogy because it was playing on the USA Network over a series of 3 days. I still have the calendar from that year where I wrote down on each of those days Star Wars A New Hope, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I think it was a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when I was 11. I think it was December. It was very important for you to know. And yeah, my dad showed me these movies, and I was instantly like, oh my God, this is the best thing I have ever seen in my life. So I would proceed to tape them off of the TV the next time they were on and watch them over and over and over again. And I was so obsessed. I wanted so much to be Luke Skywalker. Like, I would do one-handed handstands in my bedroom. I would pretend that my bicycle was a speeder bike. I would a friend and I would lightsaber duel with curtain rods, the whole deal. Like, I would try to make things move with the Force. I was super obsessed with Luke Skywalker. And that lasted for years. There was also, so the Star Wars novels, which I actually have some of them up here, like the Heir to the Empire trilogy by Timothy Zahn, if you're familiar, has a really, you're probably not familiar, but who cares, has a really awesome character called Mara Jade, who I also became very obsessed with. So there was a period where I was like, I want to be Luke and I want to be Mara. I pronounce it Mara. I try to force myself to say Mara because I know that's what most people say, but my whole life I've said Mara. But I wanted to be both Luke and Mara because Mara was just absolutely kick-ass and cool and awesome. And also, like, Luke, I feel like more closely represented, especially Luke of the novels and Luke of Return of the Jedi, more closely represented the person that I was and the person I wanted to be, of kind of like, you know, always doing what's right, always fighting for justice, sticking up for people who needed sticking up for, fighting the Empire, stuff like that. So I really liked him and wanted to be like him. But Mara started off as like an assassin and a smuggler and super strong and also like snarky and sarcastic and kind of mean, but slowly becomes like, you know, slowly grows to, also she wants to kill Luke for most of the series that she's in, but then, you know, we get over it. So I loved her a lot and I loved him a lot and I wanted to be both of them. So yeah. Okay, moving on. Throughout my teen years, this was kind of an interesting time because Socially, I was presenting more femininely than I ever had in my entire life. I mean, not counting like when I was a small child and being dressed up in like lace dresses and things like that, because that wasn't really my idea. But I was presenting the most femininely I ever had, where I was wearing makeup, I was doing my hair, I was wearing like the girliest of girly clothing, and just generally trying to, do what I thought I was supposed to do, and like attract boys, and that was the goal. You have to find a boy who likes you and wants to date you and eventually marry you and stuff like that. So I was very, very feminine in my presentation, but I was still super obsessed with being like these fictional guys. So some of them during that period were Johnny from The Outsiders. I got like a secondhand jean jacket and even tried smoking to be more like Johnny. Don't do that, kids. It's gross. It's really gross. Yeah, so there was Johnny from The Outsiders. There was Wesley Crusher from Star Trek. For him, I got a ton of books from the library about like super advanced astrophysics and all this crap that I did not understand and could not understand because I'm not good at math or science. But I was like, I must be like Wesley. I will study these things. So I did. It was cool. And I also wanted to be like Daniel from The Karate Kid. So I got a book on karate from the bookstore and learned some karate moves through a book, which is the best way to learn a martial art. I'm sure everyone will agree. I also wanted to be like Joey from Toy Soldiers, who is also played by Will Wheaton, who plays Wesley Crusher on Star Trek. And this was one of my bigger obsessions. So I would like scout when I went out shopping with my friends to the mall, as we did back then. I was always looking for any clothing that looked like the things he had worn, the outfits he had worn in the movie Toy Soldiers. And if you haven't seen Toy Soldiers, it's an incredibly like ridiculous and dramatic, but also fun movie about, terrorists taking over a private boys' school, and some of them die, and Sean Astin is in it too. And but yeah, I was obsessed with Will Wheaton's character Joey. And so like I tried to get like a blue tie-dyed shirt to be like him. I started like drawing in a notebook like he did and like folding it up and keeping it in my pocket, like just emulating him in every way, to the extent that I started using a really, really bad fake New York accent when I was out with my friends. So like we would be at the mall and we're sitting in the food court having our pretzels and like having our Auntie Anne's pretzels, and I'm just there like, yeah, I wanna go down to the record store, and get some CDs. What do you guys think about that? And my friends are just like, what is happening right now? They were all very nice about it and did not, question my sanity. But yeah, I would randomly put on a New York accent. Also, when I was volunteering so I volunteered at the local hospital during the summer for 2 years around that time. And instead of putting my first name on my name tag, I put Joey on my name tag, and I got away with it because my middle name was a portion of that name. So I was able to get away with it. And so I was Joey while I was volunteering at the hospital, which was very cool. I loved it. I guess Joey was the first time that I chose a name for myself that better reflected how I felt inside. Okay, other characters I wanted to be. Raistlin from Dragonlance, who is this embittered but very powerful mage. He's just an absolute asshole, but has a glimmer of goodness inside of him, but mostly is just an absolute asshole. Again, I think there was something about the fact that he was so free and like said any nasty thing that came into his mind that I not respected, but that I envied, because I felt very trapped into like being the good child kind of situation where like I never wanted to say anything to make anyone mad. I was very conflict avoidant, and Raceland was just like being a bastard all the time. So I was really interested in him. But the other big obsession I had when I was in high school was Highlander the series. And there's one character on Highlander the series named Mythos, who is a 5,000-year-old immortal, naturally. I wanted to be him so much. Like I would say Mythos and Joey were the two that I most wanted to be like. So I got a sweater like he had, and I would like go over to my friend's house and like prop my feet up on her kitchen table. Don't do that. But that's what he would do. I wrote so much fan fiction. So yeah, like all of these characters, I just bounced from person to person to person, from persona to persona. So like in my mind, I was living as all these guys, and externally, I was being the quote unquote girl that I thought I had to be and that I thought I was supposed to be. And then after high school, I got into anime, so there were a bunch of anime characters I really wanted to be like. There was Hutch from the old 1970s Starsky and Hutch. There was a a Japanese pop star. I wanted to be like there have been so many characters who I have really wanted to be. So one of the things that made it really difficult for me to finally realize that I was trans was the fact that I did not have like your stereotypical, oh, I always knew I was a boy kind of childhood. Like people told me I was a girl, so I was like, that must be true. My inward life was very different, but I didn't see any conflict between inwardly wanting to be all these boys, all these male characters, but externally being viewed as a girl and, being expected to fall into a certain path that girls were supposed to take. But yeah, it was good to be able to look back and follow kind of this trail of, well, yeah, outwardly, I wasn't telling anyone like, oh, I'm actually a boy. Outwardly, I wasn't fighting against what the world was telling me because I didn't think I had a choice. But inwardly, literally the whole time, I was yearning for these male identities. I was spending pretty much all of my free time trying to be these male characters. You don't need proof to be trans. You don't need things in your past that you can point to and be like, see, this, and this. But it is really helpful to have things like that to look back on. And they can be very subtle. They can be things where like no one looking at you from the outside would know what's going on. Like I read Gone with the Wind because of Johnny from The Outsiders. Someone looking in on that would not be like, yes, this child is reading Gone with the Wind because actually they are transgender, I tried to switch to being left-handed to be more like Joey from Toy Soldiers, which did not go well. Doing karate, wearing certain clothes, doing certain things, like all the things that I did because I recognized something in those characters that I wanted, that I couldn't express, but I wanted to. I wanted to be like them and be them. So I did what I could at that time. So yeah, so now like I still fixate on different characters and like it kind of helps me to go through my life like kind of riding on their energy, but I don't feel anymore like I have to embody them or become them. I can just be myself. Like I can just be me. And that's really amazing, obviously. And I wish that, child me, little boy me, being told he was a girl, but yearning for something that he didn't understand, like, I wish I could tell him, like, it's going to be okay. You're eventually going to reach a point where you don't have to want to be like these people because you'll just be able to be you and, like, be you publicly. And even though the world is pretty scary right now and there's a lot of threat to trans people being themselves in public, still, it feels really good to get to just be myself. So, yeah. But yes, in conclusion, fiction is awesome. It's kind of like how Halloween is a time when I think a lot of trans and gender nonconforming people get to kind of experiment with gender and experiment with costumes. And even outside of that, like anyone, you can go outside your comfort zone. You can try something you wouldn't normally try. You can be wild and crazy and like explore different aspects of yourself or different parts of you that don't fit with like the boxed version of yourself that society or your family or your friends or whatever is pushing you into. So I think the lives that we live through fiction, the lives that we live through Halloween, putting on costumes, cosplay, all of that is so important because that kind of exploration is so important. It's such a good way to figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you relate to, what you don't, and just, at the heart of it, who you are and who you want to be. So, yeah. All right. So, in the comments, if you would like, please let me know what fictional characters did you want to be like, or what fictional characters did you really relate to growing up or beyond? And did you do anything like I did? Or, were you just like a person who was just like, oh, I like this character, and you were able to stop at that? So, okay, well, that's going to do it for this episode. As promised, there was no script here. I had a list of fictional characters that I wrote down. And I also wrote down mention about Apple Podcasts, which I did. So yeah, that's all. Feel free to leave your comments below if you have any suggestions for future episodes. Also, I've started doing a series called Trans 101 over on my YouTube channel, which you might be on right now, or you might be listening to this through some audio podcasting thingy. Thingy is the correct technical term. But yeah, I've only done two episodes of that so far, but I'm wanting to I feel like these days more than ever, it's really important to talk openly about stuff like this and also just, knock out some myths or answer questions or demystify the whole trans experience and just make it more accessible. So that's what I'm trying to do. So if you want to check those out, feel free. Otherwise, don't. That's also fine. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I'll be back in the next episode. Who knows what kind of episode it will be? We'll find out then. Who knows when it will be? We'll find out. So yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day or night or whatever time of day it may happen to be. I'll see you next time. Okay?